So what have you been called too much of, Gemma?
Too girly, too butch, too muscular, too skinny, too fat, too quiet, too opinionated, too dramatic, too sentimental, too much up in the clouds, head in the clouds, too wide-eyed, too silly, too young, too friendly, too judgmental, too defensive, too liberal, too open, too colorful.
I don't
know.
Yeah, and when can you tell us some stories about when you've been called too much and who you've been called too much by? How made you feel?
Well, I think I started off by saying the things that were too much of, kind of like the two opposites, too skinny, too fat, which, because it makes me realize that it's quite meaningless. So to be called two contradictory things by different people of different backgrounds. So I think a funny one is the whole gender expression. I just find that really interesting because so many people still live in a black and white world, and a lot of, and obviously I'm of a different opinion, but it's just interesting also how within your own community of finding people who are different or along an LGBTQ spectrum, they also have their own judgments, because everybody has their own biases. So I think a funny thing was coming out, and I had been, well, when I was really little, I always wanted to dress like a boy, and I always had short hair, and I told my mom my favorite color was black when I was 3, and I always play with boys' toys and whatever. And so I was probably too much of a tomboy growing up. And then at some point, I think I internalized that. And I also wanted to fit in high school. So I kind of was like, okay, I'm going to be girly or something. And so I got, I looked good in whatever clothes, and then I got a lot of attention, and I didn't really care about boys' attention at all, but I actually would get attention from my mom, and to me, and my grandma, and like, to me, that was like I don't know, I guess like unconsciously, it just kind of like is a positive reinforcement. And then I kind of realized when I was coming out, and I was wearing these, in Bristol, in university, we would go out and like, dress up in heels, short skirts. It'd be below 0 freezing, didn't matter. And, you just kind of dressed up and put on makeup. And my friend's son would give me smoky eyes or whatever. And so I came from this culture then to like going out in the queer scene in New York, and like totally people and like making friends, but also people being like, what the hell are you doing? And in that respect, it's kind of like you're too girly, or like you're too, following too much kind of feminine social standards. And so I guess it made me realize, it opened me up, like whilst being called too much of something, it opened me up to realize, like, why am I doing what I do? And I actually just decided, I just really remembered, like, when I was 3, like what I wanted to wear. And I'm just like, I'm still that way. So it's been interesting, I think, though, through the queer community, just because there's so many labels, and like, you're butch, or like you're a bulldog, or you're a lipstick lesbian, or you're whatever. But I never really identify with any of those, because even though, like, yes, I don't like to wear dresses or whatever, like, I think my girlfriend still says that, like, it's so, I'm still girly in some ways, and like, it's just kind of, it's a both and thing, and you kind of learn to realize that you have elements of femininity and masculinity and non-gendered aspects as well. So, and everybody has that. So it's just been, I think, being called too much of any of it, of both of it and none of it, has just made me realize that I am both, and that is really powerful.
And how is that? Is that powerful a feeling within you, or a powerful kind of? I mean, if someone's being told too girly or being called, you know, like too tomboyish, like what would you say to them? Like if you know, what would you be your advice to them, and how is it a power just to embrace whatever you
to someone else being
are.
called too much?
Yeah. Or how you've dealt with it, you know, like.
I would just, you know, I think it's a good thing, and it's kind of like we all are evolving, and we go back and forth into things. So if, you know, if someone said you're too girly or you're too much, like, own it and embody it as much as you can, because you are also going to change at some point. You're not going to ever leave what you were, but you're just going to continue to embrace new identities. So to me, I think the coolest thing is to just, like, be what you are too much of as much as you can in that moment, and you'll carry it with you forever.
Perfect. And when I've asked this before, but when was the first moment you realised that, you know, people calling you too much or something was their problem and not your problem?
Yeah. I think, yeah, not to make it always about gender, but yeah, I guess coming out is just kind of like a big moment of just, like, you have kind of like is a moment of repressing ideas, or like repressing who you are, because you're surrounded by people who tell you that the certain person that you are, but they don't know, they are too much. They're too loud, too proud, too flamboyant, too promiscuous, too, you know, I don't know what the word is, Philistine, I don't know, the one where they're sacrilegious or whatever, too sacrilegious. But when it becomes like a personal thing, like when, you know, I think it was when I came out to my dad and I wanted to live with my gay friend, and he kept on saying, no, I don't think it's a good idea, whatever. And I was like, why do you have all these barriers up against him? And then he finally said, you know, he's gay. And I'm like, what does that mean? And I was like, well, and my dad literally said he's too, you know, he's promiscuous, blah, blah. I'm like, you don't know that at all, but it's just, and he was just like, it's too much. And I was like, well, I guess I'm too much too, because I'm gay too. So, you know, what do you want to make, what's going on? So that was a really interesting moment. And just also just, I think realizing that people are very irrational. So, and it doesn't really matter, just as long as you stay true to who you are. The too skinny or too chubby or whatever, you know, it's really irrelevant. It's more just, are you happy and are you healthy? And, you know, there could be reasons why you're skinny. I had a tapeworm, not gonna lie. And went through horrible rehabilitation.
Oh my God, that's so terrifying.
Yeah, real story. Too chubby, who the fuck cares? You know, there's a happy heart and a healthy heart underneath any layers that you might have. I think too political, maybe that's an insecurity from the other person's end, that they're not political enough, because I don't think you can be ever too political. I think being political is being awake, so good for you for staying awake. Too assertive, again, probably a man told me that, and it's a good thing. So it's time that women started talking and being more assertive and being listened to. So what else? Too young. I'm gonna be so happy when I'm 70 and people still think I'm too young. So I just embrace being too young, because anybody at any age is gonna be. You can always be young at heart and young athletically or whatever. Just, you know, it's all good. So I don't know why that would be an issue. Why that's like a negative comment. And also because young people are smart and they are the future, so that's a good thing. Too silly. Yeah, I think my family members say that because they, you know, if you're too silly, and people say that you're too silly because they're afraid of you not being taken seriously, it's pretty good to be lighthearted, and in the long run is good to not take things in as much or not let it affect you as much. So just stay silly, stay light, and life will be great, you know. Too quiet. I grew up very quiet, but doesn't mean, just because you're quiet doesn't mean you don't listen, and doesn't mean you're not smart, and it's probably a really good asset to be able to absorb and observe before acting. It's a healthy practice. Too loud, I said, well, you know, too loud and proud. Never going to be too loud and proud. Too muscular. Girls can lift, and girls can probably lift more than men if they put their hearts to it. I've seen it. And too wide-eyed and dreamy, with my head in the clouds. Probably not, because I'm proving them wrong by achieving what I set out to do 10 years ago. So just keep doing what you're doing. But have a plan. And and too colorful. That's quite silly, right? Probably ties into not being taken seriously with dark and droll professional clothes. But color plays a lot into you know, emotions and sensory kind of, you know, how you receive emotions and things like that. So I think the more colorful, the more happy, or the more emotive you are presenting yourself.